Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 18 meeting of the Ann Arbor City Council. If you're able, please rise and join us for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would our clerk please call the roll of council?
Councilmember Dish.
Here.
Councilmember Harrison.
Here.
Councilmember Watson.
Here.
Councilmember Malik.
Here.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Ghazi Edwin.
Here.
Mayor Taylor.
Here.
Councilmember Iyer.
Here.
Councilmember Ackman.
Here.
Councilmember Briggs.
Here.
Councilmember Cornell. Here. We have a quorum.
May I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda? Moved by Councilmember Cornell, second by Councilmember Ackman. Discussion of the agenda. Councilmember Watson?
Sorry. I'd like to move to approve the proposed item to be added to the agenda, resolution to recommend approval of issuance of a downtown development district liquor license to Recess Cafe LLC.
Where to? Perhaps, is it the council item, DC 4?
Oh, sure, yes.
Perfect. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Medina. Discussion of that? All in favor of that amendment? Opposed? The amendment is approved. Further discussion of the agenda as amended? All in favor? Opposed? The agenda as amended is approved. Did we have communications today from our city attorney? I'm sorry, from our city administrator?
No, Mayor.
But we do have communications today from the Ann Arbor Area Transportation Authority. Welcome.
Good evening, Jeff Pfeiffer with the Ann Arbor Area Transportation Authority. Really appreciate you having me here this evening. Just had a few updates to share with council. First of which, February 4th marked Transit Equity Day across the United States. This year was particularly special. It marked the 70th anniversary of the Montgomery bus boycotts, obviously sparked by Rosa Parks' courageous actions. We typically celebrate each year. This year was a little extra special. To honor Ms. Parks, we displayed bus cards above the windows in each of our buses and our fleet in the days leading up to February 4th, and then on February 4th placed an honorary reserve placard on one seat per bus to honor Rosa Parks and her legacy, not only public transit, but the civil rights movement as a whole. Next update I have for you all is our Low-No Grant Award. Many of you remember the ride was awarded a $25 million grant back in July to be used to purchase hybrid buses as well as a hydrogen pilot program. Just as an update to where we're at in that process, currently awaiting the obligation process. Congress has appropriated the funds, but we still need to get them obligated. The funds were appropriated under the Biden administration as was the award given under the Biden administration. Since then, obviously been an administration change, slew of executive orders and directives. So we're more or less in a waiting period on that. We're still optimistic that those funds will get obligated, but we'll be sure to update you all as that progresses. And last update I had, as many of you know, the Get Downtown program, which is a collaboration between the RIDE, City of Ann Arbor, and the DDA, hosts an annual Conquer the Cold program designed to get folks to take public transit during the winter months. It stems from January 20th to February 20th, so it is wrapping up here. I just want to share a couple of statistics on that. So since January 20th, over 350 people have taken at least one green trip, meaning either public transit, walking, biking, etc. With these trips, they have prevented over 25 tons of CO2 emissions and reduced VMT, or vehicle miles traveled, by 58,000. So really great. We had a really great turnout this year, and hopefully have a strong finish the next couple days. Lastly, just want to give a shout out particularly to teams from Ward 4 and Ward 5 who have logged over 530 green trips. I'm hearing there's a little bit of competition going on towards the end, but yeah, there we go. Those are the updates I have for you this evening.
Thank you very much. We now come to public comment reserve time. Public comment reserve time is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to council and the community about matters of municipal interest. To speak at public comment reserve time, one needs to have signed up in advance by contacting our city clerk. Speakers in all instances will have 3 minutes in which to speak, so please pay close attention to the time. Our clerk or the time clock will notify you when 30 seconds are remaining and when your time is expired. When your time is expired, please conclude your remarks and cede the floor. Our first speaker today is Parnell McCarter.
Good evening. I want to ask for you to please support the ongoing efforts towards having a public electric utility here for Ann Arbor. I want to thank the mayor for putting together a plan for putting it on the ballot next year after a valuation study that will allow us to have a clear idea of how much the infrastructure costs, so that in negotiations and arbitration with DTE, we can move that step forward. For me, when it comes to the environment and public health, the fight is personal. I have asthma, and I have known personally how pollution, specifically in my case air pollution, can affect my health. And I know that DTE is not serious about moving away from polluting forms of energy. They continue to rely on frack gas. That is their plan for decades to come. Meanwhile, on the Yale website, they note that since 2014, this compendium by the Physicians for Social Responsibility and Concerned Health Professionals of New York has tallied 2,239 peer-reviewed papers that found evidence of harm from fracking, with nearly 1,000 of those papers published since 2018. And this is an article in 2022, so I'm sure there's been more studies since then. They also noticed that a paper by the Yale School of Public Health that summer showed that children living near Pennsylvania wells that use fracking to harvest natural gas are 2 to 3 times more likely to contract a form of childhood leukemia than their peers who live farther away. And then even taking a step back from environmental and public health issues, we see right now at a national level some of the most extreme forms of oligarchy. And I believe that here at the local level, we have the opportunity to fight back against corporate oligarchy in the form of DTE's hold on our community. So I ask that when the time comes that you please vote for these proposals and move the ball forward for decades to come for a better future. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brandon Dimcheff.
Mayor Brandon Dimcheff is online. Brandon Dimcheff, go ahead.
Hi, this is Brandon Dimcheff from West Larrytown at Ward 4. I would like to thank council members Ackman, Cornell, and Briggs for bringing DC3 forward, and would like to request that you all vote in favor of it tonight. As some of you probably know, I ride my bike around town a lot for commuting, errands, and recreationally. I frequently encounter obstructed bike lanes, particularly on Packard, and I've had a couple close calls over the years with drivers passing dangerously close to me while I'm trying to avoid a trash can or an illegally parked vehicle. Better roadway design can help reduce obstacles substantially, as the protected lanes are blocked way less frequently than the paint and pray lanes are. Studies also consistently show that protected and delineated bicycle infrastructure makes the road safer for all users, including drivers. We should accelerate quick builds and other projects that get physical barriers between cars and vulnerable road users. We're being outdone by other peer cities, and we need to pick up the pace in fulfilling our commitment to build fully connected, all ages and abilities bicycle infrastructure throughout the city. But design can only get us so far. Despite an enormous percentage of public space in our city being dedicated to cars, drivers manage to force their way into the leftover spaces that are supposed to be reserved for pedestrians and cyclists. We all know that people who park in the division cycle track know what they're doing is wrong and choose to do it anyways, endangering me and my friends in the process. The current system of reporting violations is simply not working. It's rare that community standards responds quickly enough to ticket a vehicle. I doubt frequent offenders like Amazon delivery trucks, which I frequently dodge on Packard, have ever gotten ticketed as they're only there long enough to block a couple bikes before moving along to block some bikes up the road a little. As the bike lane, and the bike lane on Main between Packard and Madison might as well be 15-minute parking because there's always a car in that every time I go by. Every time that happens, there's an increased risk of a conflict between a driver and a cyclist that could end up with someone injured or dead. Some sort of proactive enforcement is necessary. I certainly don't know all the answers, but we absolutely have a safety problem here. I hope this resolution will get us a step closer to solving that problem. Please support it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brian Garinger.
Hello, Council. My name is Brian Geringer. I am the Executive Director of Ann Arbor for Public Power. Over the past few weeks, A2P2 has, for the first time, opened up the future of this campaign to its ever-growing membership. Myself and many people in this room watching from home voted on whether or not to endorse the plan for public power encapsulated by the two resolutions before you today. I want to thank every council member for allowing the people the opportunity to have a say in this future. I want to especially thank Mayor Taylor for presenting his vision of how the city could move forward at our recent town hall and enduring a skeptical audience with knowledge and grace. The people decided to move boldly forward with the plan before you. We stand on the precipice of a movement, one that will not be intimidated by the local oligarchs known as DTE Energy. DTE has been working furiously to open up new lanes in their anti-science propaganda campaign against Ann Arbor's prosperous democratic energy future. DTE has released a study written by perhaps the most infamous propagandist for big oil, Charles River Associates, joining the poisonous legacy of Exxon, Shell, and British Petroleum in attempts to fool the people of this world into applauding the hands that choke them. DTE has launched a community relations program and bombarded Ann Arborites with mailers and ads attempting to scare us back into their gaping maw. They have, of course, done all of this with our money. Needless to say, this barrage of propaganda from DTE would not be necessary if they were indeed the reliable, fiscally responsible, renewable energy providers they claimed to be. I am sure that all of you have received communications from constituents concerned about the $1.7 million price tag of the second feasibility study. Some of you have even questioned your entire stance on public power because of that price tag. But it is your job to be a steward of the truth. The truth is that that price tag is high, but the truth is also that this study, if it doesn't happen now, it could cause a 2-year delay to public power in Ann Arbor. And in those 2 years, Ann Arborites will pay about $47 million to DTE shareholders alone. That's 28 times the cost of the study. The truth is that if Ann Arbor had been paying the rates of Chelsea's public power over the last 25 years, we would have saved $814 million. The truth is that every single public electric utility in Michigan pays lower rates than DTE. So it is your job to make your constituents understand the whole picture here and not just one price tag. I think the truth is that Ann Arbor is ready for public power, and Ann Arbor will make public power happen. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kevin Bonsek.
Mayor, City Council members, thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I stand to make 2 key points. One, in support of the procurement of independent professional advice to assess our community's position regarding sustainable energy. Second, a measured and cautious concern for prematurely preparing a ballot initiative for municipalization before we fully understand the facts and recommendations from said consultants we plan on hiring. Throughout my 3 decades of leadership, public service, and policy making at the local, state, and federal level, I've learned the importance of careful planning and execution. A principle I've often observed, unfortunately, in its negative form is ready, shoot, aim. I believe this mantra is highly relevant to the proposals under consideration. Our community is ready to further explore and support sustainable energy options. In fact, we're already doing it. We share a commitment to environmental awareness, stewardship, and equity, particularly given the observable impacts of climate change. The successful establishment of an opt-in, sustainable energy utility demonstrates our values, passed in November. However, my concern is that we are already shooting toward municipalization without adequately assessing the landscape. This is a significant decision with far-reaching consequences. The estimated investment to acquire DTE's assets is substantial, potentially exceeding $1 billion. The financial risk for ongoing maintenance and improvements would fall on Ann Arbor ratepayers. Furthermore, we must carefully consider the broader implications of such a move, both within Ann Arbor and beyond. Instead of demonstrating due diligence and careful consideration, a rush to exploring a ballot initiative risks the creation of further division and hindering collaborative discussions. We have seen examples at the national level just in the past few weeks where elected officials and new appointees disregard expert advice and pursue ill-conceived actions. We must avoid a similar path here in Ann Arbor. Exploring the logistics and language for a ballot initiative before receiving the results of an independent consultant's analysis is premature, imprudent, and quite frankly, disingenuous. While enthusiasm and political motivations are understandable, they must not outweigh financial realities and practical solutions. I urge the council to prioritize careful aiming. Let us be guided by subject matter experts and professionals before determining any potential next steps towards sustainability. We might find that our resources are better invested in alternative strategies. A thorough and informed approach will ultimately best serve the interests of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Greg Woodring.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor and City Council. I'm Greg Woodring, the President of Ann Arbor for Public Power, and I'm also here to encourage you to vote yes on the proposals put in front of you. I understand that there will be likely a delay while some of the details are figured out. However, we hope that you will move forward with these proposals. It's no question that we are dealing with an unfolding crisis at the national level. We are in new uncharted territory here with this current administration. However, in many ways, this is nothing new. We've watched for decades now as the federal government has neglected and abdicated its responsibility to address the climate crisis. Meanwhile, at the state level, despite Michigan having a Democratic trifecta, efforts to address the climate crisis were largely stymied as well. This is largely due to the influence of the corrosive company of DTE. DTE is determined to prevent us from taking the necessary actions needed to address the climate crisis. And they are trying to do the same here. I'm sure all of you have received DTE's phony report on the cost of municipalization that they put out about last week, oddly timed, slightly before these resolutions were to come forward. I urge you to look past these. These numbers are clearly intended to push a narrative. We have a responsibility to move forward with effective climate action in this city. There is no other way that we are going to reach our climate goals without pursuing public power. And while yes, the price tag up front for some of these steps necessary to get to that finish line of truly achieving 100% renewable power can be high, they are an investment that will pay returns far greater than any cost that we are being put in front of us. Think about this, not only just thinking about what we are getting out of an electric utility, but think about the investment that DTE is doing right now in our communities. I'm sure all of you have seen their ads that they have been pushing out to all of us. And I want you to ask yourself if you truly believe that they are doing this out of the goodness of their heart, or if perhaps they are feeling some pressure from the actions that this council are taking. I urge you to keep this process going, because if you stop it now, that investment is also going to stop. And that $1.7 million is going to look pretty small compared to the hundreds of millions of dollars DTE is already prepared to put in. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kathleen Murphy.
So, good evening, City Council and Mayor Taylor and attendees in this room to this meeting. I am Kathleen Murphy. I live at 315 Linda Vista Street, that's in Ward 5. I support having a publicly owned, if you can say that, or municipal electric utility in Ann Arbor and replacing DTE. Therefore, I'm urging you to approve the two resolutions on the agenda tonight, listed as DC1 and DC2, which are both necessary steps in the journey towards a municipal or city-owned electrical utility. DC1 is the resolution asking to approve the money for an electric grid and assessment valuation and municipalization study at $1,728,000. And DC2 resolution authorizing city staff to do the preliminary work necessary to put the question of the acquisition of DTE Electric Company's assets to a vote of the people and prepare for litigation should the voters authorize such acquisition. The advantages of a municipal electric utility are that it would cost less for customers, as seen in an example of Chelsea, and we would be able to use renewables as our source of power instead of fossil fuels, which DTE uses. In other words, it would be better for the planet. Since the current federal administration has no interest in reducing the use of fossil fuels, it is one thing we could do at the local level to reduce the carbon footprint of Ann Arbor. Thus, by municipalizing our electric utility, we could control what energy sources Ann Arbor uses. To have the possibility of municipalizing, we need to pass these two resolutions. The cost of the municipalization study is high, but the cost of not undertaking it are much higher, as we would be unable to ask the voters to vote to buy out DTE because we would not know what the cost of those assets were. Thus, the possibility of municipalizing our electric utility would unfortunately no longer be an option, which is a major loss, I think, to Ann Arbor. So, I urge you, City Council members and Mayor, to approve these two resolutions when the opportunity arises, so municipalization of our electric utility could be an option for Ann Arbor, and voters would have the opportunity to vote for or against acquisition of DTE's assets. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sydney Altoff.
Hi, Council. My name's Sydney Olthoff, and I'm an undergrad at the University of Michigan. And I've also been organizing with Ann Arbor for Public Power for about a year and a half since I started at Michigan. And I am a resident of Ward 4. So I just wanted to address today specifically Councilmember Briggs and Councilmember Ackman, because I'm concerned about some of the things that you put in your newsletter, and I just want to talk about them. So in your newsletter, you claim to care for other priorities over pursuing municipalization, one of those, interestingly, being climate. And you mention your desire to pursue reliable, renewable, and more affordable power, and yet in this way you stand with DTE. Across the country right now, Democrats are silent. Where are they? I mean, again, this is not incredibly surprising, but given the best funded election that the Democrats have ever had, I don't know where everyone is and where people are at our national, state, and local level. They're silent on climate, brutal and unjust immigration enforcement, attacks on LGBTQ people, the disintegration of national public health, education, and aid programs. Where are our leaders? Your constituents are afraid, restless, and frustrated by your inaction. There's no place for, I care about clean energy, or, of course we care about our immigrant communities, but these delays and hesitation are inaction. And as students, as residents, as voters, as your constituents, we deserve our democratically represented officials to represent our concerns. And Ann Arbor is not Ann Arbor, Public Power is the step forward to take if you truly want to push for clean energy. No amount of advertising of DTE postcards funded by our money, by the way, my very high bills that I'm paying in my apartment that already cost a lot of money, will get us to our renewable energy goals. So today I'm asking you to commit to your sustainability goals, commit to your city, commit to your protective immigration policies, commit to your support for DEI and education, and expand these goals, policies, and actions to follow through on your promises to Ann Arbor. Awareness is nice, but I am tired of speaker events, of public education campaigns, and my generation, frankly, doesn't have the time to wait for the rich homeowners of Ann Arbor to grace us with their purchase of solar panels with the SEU. And so we need to commit to democratically controlled climate action now. And thank you for your time, and I look forward to discussing this further with my council members. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Daniel Mayer.
Thank you. Danny Meyer, a 5th Ward, 25-year resident of Ann Arbor, and I too am no fan of DTE. I don't think there are many. However, I wish to convey a different point of view than the other passionate speakers you've heard from thus far. Exactly 64 municipalities have tried this path in the last 2 decades. And of those, only 7 succeeded in creating a municipal power company. Of those 7, 2 of them were sold back to the original power company because they failed. The other 5 of them, one served 4,900 customers total. 2 of them serve 2 extremely small communities in Alaska with 75 customers each. The other 2 serve small rural towns of 14,000 and 18,000 customers, respectively. Those used to be called rural electric co-ops. The other 50 plus have gone this path and have not gone forward. At a time when our federal, state, and other funding sources are in flux and at risk, now is not the time to spend $1.7 million on a study that does not provide an outcome. It simply kicks the can down the road. I would encourage the council to focus our time, our money, our resources, all which are precious, on maximizing the SEU. That can start today. That can be maximized immediately. The municipalization will take decades, will cost millions, will cost billions potentially, will cost lawyers' fees and lawyers' fees and lawyers' fees, and we won't get anywhere other than where these other municipalities have gotten. They've wasted the money. If green, reliable energy is our goal, and I hope it is, I see the SEU as the best immediate vehicle and where we should focus our energy. And that pun is intended. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tom Stolberg.
Mr. Stolberg is joining us on Zoom. Caller with the phone number ending in 534, go ahead.
Good evening. This is Tom Stolberg calling from Lower Town in Ann Arbor. I'm speaking tonight on why you should not approve giving a broker $100,000 non-refundable for an effort that has very low chance of success. I'd rather take a pause and see what our new economic director can think up. Reading through his bio released today, Joe Giant seems to have a skill set that could help solve the very problematic 415 West Washington site. Give him a shot before flushing $100,000, please. We have been step by step advancing an unwise and highly problematic plan for 415 West Washington because we want something to happen so bad, but reality will catch up with us. First, the pre-approved plan is not fully pre-approved. The HDC must officially approve it. It has not officially been presented to the HDC. In working sessions, it was clear that the HDC was not inclined to approve what was presented. A buyer will find that out when they do their due diligence. 2, there are problems with the way the PUD was approved. I sent you a long email about that earlier. 3, federal and local policies are to not build residential in floodplains. Those policies exist for a very good reason. We have decided that we know better. The majority of that site is in the flood fringe and very flat and barely higher than the part of the site in the floodway. Nature will have the last say, and it has been speaking louder and louder when it comes to stormwater. We aren't listening. Let me read from our city's hazard mitigation plan. Flooding may become more frequent due to 1, increased precipitation that is more concentrated into heavy precipitation events, and 2, increased development and impervious cover. The floodplain associated with the Allen Creek is particularly vulnerable as it is one of Ann Arbor's most populated areas and development within the floodplain is ongoing. The city storm sewer is not designed to handle those stormwater volumes, 100-year precipitation events, several of which have occurred in recent years. Our city's recently retired stormwater expert said, I quote, "The idea of planning for residential uses is not suitable from a floodplain management standpoint at this location. While codes may allow residential uses in the flood fringe, building elevated residential structures in the flood fringe increases the responsibility and cost of serious
30 seconds.
emergency services in responding to flood events, increases the risk of occupants being injured in a flood, and floodplain construction is more costly. The United States Department of Housing and Urban Development prohibits spending federal money for residential uses in the floodplain for these reasons." He finishes with, "The city should also avoid residential uses in the floodplain." Let's figure out something better. This is not a good plan. Let's not proceed with spending money, hard money, that's non-refundable now. Let's come up with something better. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rita Mitchell.
Mayor Rita Mitchell is joining us on Zoom. Rita Mitchell, phone number 194. Go ahead.
Hello. Hi, this is Rita Mitchell, 621 5th Street. I've spoken to council about 415 West Washington multiple times in the past. I'm returning tonight to repeat my concerns and to ask you to exclude 415 West Washington from the brokerage contract that's presented to you tonight. We're in a climate crisis, and the city is rightly preparing for actions to sustain basic services for the community in the event of a weather emergency. You know that 415 West Washington is located in the Allen Creek floodplain and floodway, as the prior speaker said. The floodway portion of the site is to be dedicated to the tree line trail. That's a good idea. Given predictions for more frequent and intense storms as experienced in recent years, and exemplified by the winter storm that just hit Kentucky, the city should take advantage of floodplain property that it already owns and use it to provide stormwater management services of absorption and filtering. You'll save lives by not building housing in a risky area. You'll save lives of safety personnel who may be called to rescue people in flooded areas and who could be deployed elsewhere in an emergency. You will save flood insurance money for those required to purchase it because they live in a flood-prone area. I ask you to explain why you're considering increasing risk to people and property by increasing housing in a known floodplain area, while at the same time purchasing flood-prone areas in other areas of the properties in other areas of the city, such as that on North Main Street. You can use the open space for the Y to have outdoor access for classes, for events and casual drawings that will draw more people to the downtown area. 415 West Washington is long recognized as an excellent non-motorized link through the west side of Ann Arbor. It's time to act boldly, acknowledge the natural systems in which we live, and work to live with them, as opposed to having to develop ways to work around them. And while I'm on the topic of climate emergency, I ask you to support the resolutions that will come before you soon to proceed with a feasibility study for municipal electricity for Ann Arbor. I recognize that costs for purchase of equipment and the study will be involved and will be better defined by the study. I remind you that a municipal utility will generate revenue from the electricity provided, will allow flexibility to install and purchase clean renewable energy. It will even expand the range of services and the number of ratepayers over the group that the SEU plans to cover.
30
Revenue
seconds.
from electricity would go directly to the city rather than to DTE investors. Local control of energy will benefit the city, residents, and businesses in the long run. I'm relying on you to decide to move forward with a plan that has sustainability built into it and that can respond to the urgent need for clean, renewable energy. I look forward to your future vote in support of the feasibility study. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Adam Juszkiewicz.
Mayor Adam Juszkiewicz is joining us on Zoom. Mr. Juszkiewicz, go ahead.
Hello, this is Adam Juszkiewicz calling from the 4th Ward. I'd like to thank the sponsors for bringing forward DC3 regarding proactive enforcement for bike lane obstructions. Cars in the bike lanes are a perpetual problem, and the current system of reporting these on See-Click Fix or calling non-emergency dispatch is not working. Proactive enforcement, just as we do with commercial loading zones, parking meters, and so forth, will go a long way toward ensuring people find legal parking elsewhere, rather than taking a chance and blocking traffic in the bike lane. I think it's a great idea to couple this with data gathering and exploration of engineering solutions to prevent the problem in the first place. Please pass this tonight. On the topic of enforcement of rules that ensure the safety of non-motorized users of our transportation system, I would like to again address the topic of sidewalk snow and ice removal. We have a very similar problem with regard to keeping our sidewalks clear of snow and ice as we do with keeping our bike lanes clear of cars and wheelie bins. We currently rely on people to report violations with See-Click Fix, and those reports often do not get addressed in a timely fashion. As a consequence, dangerous conditions persist for several days, particularly if snowfall occurs on a Friday or over the weekend. I would like to see a similar resolution to DC3, but regarding proactive enforcement of sidewalk snow and ice removal. I realize doing this on every sidewalk in the city is unrealistic, but I think a good way to reduce the scope is to focus on sidewalks adjacent to priority 1 and 2 snow plowing routes. These routes are important thoroughfares in our city where most of our bus stops, schools, shopping areas, and multifamily homes are located. If you're walking anywhere in the city, chances are part of your walk, if not your origin and/or destination, will be on one of these routes. Making sure they are clear will benefit the most people with the least effort. Given DC3 tonight, it's a no-brainer to apply the same logic to keeping our sidewalks clear of snow and ice. The resolutions could be almost identical. Most of the whereas clauses also apply to keeping sidewalks safe and accessible for everyone. And even the resolved clauses could be pretty much the same. Eventually, I would like to see the city take on sidewalk snow removal citywide. But until that happens, I believe proactive enforcement of our current ordinance is necessary, just as it is for keeping bike lanes clear of cars and wheelie bins. Please pass DC3 tonight, and please bring forward a similar resolution for sidewalk snow and ice removal. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Megan Sims.
I'm going to read so it can stay 3 minutes. Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. We are ordinary people in extraordinary times. Jolted into a new reality these past few years, we must upgrade our standards of action from the status quo to a new normal. For all decisions regarding Ann Arbor, from bike lanes to tree removal to sidewalks and zoning, we must create a radical upgrade in our ability to balance between growth and building with ecologically sustainable and survivable connection with nature. This means innovation and collaboration. In concrete terms, and you'll get the pun in just a second, we can no longer afford to cut down old-growth trees and bring in the typical cement truck to fill in all these gaps in the sidewalks. That's way too much environmental damage. So what do? We do the extraordinary, innovate and collaborate. We call upon the rich resources of our cutting-edge university and invite students and teachers in public health, urban planning, engineering, and the School of Sustainability with our local world-renowned architects, and we implement new ideas. We create new solutions for our newer challenges. Progressives who want infinite growth want only progress toward our extinction. If you are truly progressive, you will understand the urgent need to stretch your abilities, your efforts, and your outlook of what seems possible to reach for solutions that truly nourish the Ann Arbor community, both human and more than human. Ann Arbor is growing in popularity and population. It is now deemed the fresh coast. Because of climate change and our position in the world and other attractive features, we are growing fast. We can be a model for the world. But I'm seeing my town transform from a funky, idiosyncratic, cool college town in which many diverse populations flourish to a homogeneous Gotham City-type skyscape in which money talks and every city block is chock full of national chains with no local flavor. Every townie I know has just about given up on keeping what we cherish in Ann Arbor. It feels like we've been sold out to out-of-town investors. So City Council members, what is your vision of our beloved tree town? I know that you are constantly being asked to address issues that pull you and our resources in opposite directions. I am asking you to slow down your decision-making process to include community members in a meaningful way, especially when our ecosystems are in question. for Brockman Street, Nichols Arboretum, and open zoning for housing and population density. We must do much more to respect, restore, and cultivate the natural environment, including the trees our town is named for. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kathy Griswold.
Thank you. My topic tonight is a safe Ann Arbor for everyone, and I think safety was one of the themes through many of the talks tonight. And if we had a safety vision that we used along with our crisis for housing and our crisis for sustainability and climate change, we could better make decisions. But safety has to drive everything we do. We can't say we're too busy to do it. First, I want to start with some thank yous. I want to thank all the community members who've been posting social issues on social media. And please remember to use A2Fixit. It is the only platform monitored by city staff. I also want to mention that there is a growing body of incriminating information out on social media. Number two, I want to thank the Transportation Commission. They have a resolution they're going to consider on Wednesday, and it has a goal of creating remote drop-off zones. How novel. That sounds like King's School to me. It sounds like those remote drop-off zones that I've been talking about for many years, so maybe we'll consider them again. And number three, I want to thank the MLive news reporters. I don't know if you've seen this article yet. This is the sled and the fence post where a little boy sustained a concussion over the weekend. And a quote from a city staffer about how to avoid these type of crashes. Avoid hills with trees, telephone poles, large rocks, and fences on the slope or at the base of the slope. This is exactly what Ann Arbor has. Standard practice is if you can't remove the post, put some padding over it like every ski resort and private sledding facility has. So I'm confident we're going to do that. Then I want to mention that we need a policy for City Council to pass that addresses safety. Safety first. We evaluate our companies that we give contracts to based on safety, their OSHA score. There are many staffers individually who are very concerned about safety. I met a few of them this weekend. However, we don't have a driving mission from council, and we need that. We need to keep safety in front of everything we do. So I think I have almost ended. Other than, I sent an email today, I want to draw your attention to it. It mentions 4 safety issues. Time doesn't allow me to go into it right now, but why can't we keep the lights on in Ann Arbor? It's a real shame.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there communications today from council? Councilmember Malik.
I want to highlight that Councilmember Watson and I will be hosting our next listening session this Sunday, February 23rd, from 3 to 4 p.m. at Traverwood Library. And we will have a special guest that we're very excited about, Chief Andre Anderson of the Ann Arbor Police Department. Thanks, and we hope to see you there.
Councilmember Dish.
I want to remind everyone that Monday evening, February 24th, Cynthia Harrison and I will be having a coffee hour at Bamboo, which is located at 200 South 1st, and we will have special guest Dr. Misty Stultz to talk about the very special SEU.
Councilmember Watson.
I wanted to draw residents' attention to AC1, the Ann Arbor Housing Commission 6-month fiscal year 25 program expenditure report on the $1,075,000 marijuana excise tax rebate funds. I've been a proud co-sponsor of our budget amendments using marijuana excise tax funds to support eviction prevention, youth services, and the Rising Hope for Housing program for housing voucher households involved in the criminal legal system. I'll give some highlights of the outcomes of this spending. The $250,000 council allocated to eviction prevention in fiscal year '25 has helped 156 households with past due rent, legal fees, utilities, and any other overdue payments for households in danger of losing their housing through eviction. Since council has approved eviction prevention funding in the last 3 fiscal years, that brings the total to 455 households assisted between March of '23 and September of '24. And we know that eviction prevention funding is the most efficient way to keep people housed because it's easier to keep people in their homes than to help them once they've fallen into homelessness. The sum of these funds covered 94% of total past due rent owed by all participants, and 96% of accepted applicants had all their past due rent covered. The $250,000 allocated to youth services went to 11 nonprofit community organizations, some providing services on our Housing Commission sites like Avalon Housing, and others serving predominantly minority and refugee communities like Washtenaw My Brother's Keeper and Jewish Family Services. The remainder of the funds went to Rising Hope for Housing, which has created a network of organizations to provide trauma-informed case management services, prioritizing individuals and families impacted by the criminal legal system with tenant-based housing choice vouchers, including returning citizens. So between July 1st and December 31st of 2024, the Rising Hope program assisted 43 households, averaging 7 per month. Most referrals continue to be new applicant households, with only about 7 households returning for additional service through the program, so it's helping people. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Councilmember Harrison for her leadership on that program. I'm grateful to the Ann Arbor Housing Commission and the numerous web of nonprofits that have helped provide services with marijuana funds. Thank you.
Further communication from council. Councilmember Ackman.
Thank you. I wanted to be sure that people knew about the new rebates that the city is offering for electric lawn equipment. As many folks know, we are doing a phase out of gas-powered leaf blowers. Very polluting for the air, use a ton of carbon. Their carbon footprint is huge. What's the statistic? One gas-powered leaf blower for 1 hour can emit the same amount of greenhouse gases as driving a gas-powered car over 1,000 miles. So anyway, we are offering a discount on both electric lawn equipment as well as an electric leaf blower rebate program. Some of this is structured for landscaping companies and some of it for individuals. You can find out more on the OSI sustainability website. Thanks.
Councilmember Cornell.
Keep logging your miles, Ward 5. We're almost there for the Conquer the Cold Challenge. A couple more days. If you haven't logged your miles, please go and do so. And along those lines, I want to thank City Administrator Mr. Dohoney and city staff. This has been our last 2 snowstorms. I've never heard so few complaints about the state of our downtown. And how easily it was to get out on the sidewalks. I actually went to my employment downtown very early on Thursday morning after the snowstorm and was pleasantly surprised to find that I could walk up the hill on Liberty in heels without a problem because the sidewalk was completely cleared. And a lot of residents and a lot of business owners downtown reached out to share their appreciation and, for better or worse, surprise at our response to that. So I think the fact that in December, when we did authorize that additional snow clearing budget and asked the city to pay closer attention to the walkability of downtown, it's yielding results. And I urge residents to continue to share the feedback, good or bad. It was really nice to hear that that's something that we asked for, a lot of citizens asked for, we took action on, and it resulted in something positive, which we don't hear very often. So thank you. That was a great job by the city. And I also wanted to say thank you to all the residents who, City of Ann Arbor residents who reached out to share feedback on agenda items this week. There was a large volume of communication that I received and I believe my colleagues received, and it's helpful to hear from a broad range of voices. So thank you. It matters when you reach out. We do pay attention.
Further communication from council. I'd like to recommend the following reappointment for your consideration to the Board of Review. Alice Owings. We have before us the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Councilmember Harrison, seconded by Councilmember Dish. Discussion of the consent agenda. Councilmember Dish.
I don't want to pull anything. I just wanted to, there's a lot of really great stuff on this consent agenda, and if I talked about all of it, you would all fall overboard. But I did want to point out that CA 13 is the authorization for a new commercial and multifamily residential EV charger program through OSI. OSI has been working with commercial and multifamily property owners to co-design a program to assist commercial and multifamily sites with installing publicly accessible EV chargers. And they have worked that out, and there will be a roughly 3-year, it's hard to tell, FY 25 to 27, 3-year pilot. And I'm really excited, and I hope that people will apply for that when the portal opens up for that. This is grant funded, and boy, we just need more EV chargers, because those of us who are not riding e-bikes should be charging our e-cars.
Councilmember Malik.
I would like to pull CA 15, if we could. And then next, I note by my count that at least 5 items on tonight's consent agenda, a full 1/3, relate to cost overruns and the need to appropriate additional and often, in many other cases, unplanned funds. I understand that a lot of time cost overruns are completely unavoidable. Government projects from the early planning phase to final completion often take place over many years in which costs fluctuate quite a bit. Those overruns, however, are easier to understand and ultimately swallow when they are accompanied by detailed costs and reasons for those costs. This is the case tonight, in particular for CA5 and CA6 related to the Gallup Park Bridge project. So I'd like to thank staff for providing that level of detail and transparency on those items, and ultimately look forward to engaging with staff and council to plan and estimate realistic costs where we can moving forward. Thanks.
Councilmember Briggs.
I'd like to pull CA 8.
Further discussion of the consent agenda. All in favor, please, of the consent agenda with the exception of CA 15, CA 8. All opposed? The consent agenda with the exception of CA 15 and CA 8 is approved with 11 council members present, all voting the affirmative, thus satisfying the 8-vote requirement with respect to CA 6, CA 12, and CA 14. CA 15, resolution to approve a professional services agreement with the CBRE for brokerage services for the sale of city-owned real estate, the property commonly referred to as the Klein's Lot and 415 West Washington, and appropriate $700,000. Moved by Councilmember Malik, seconded by Councilmember Adina. Discussion, please, of CA 15. Councilmember Malik.
Thank you. I understand 2 resolutions from 2024 directed Administrator Tahoney and city staff to this contract tonight. I managed to read up quite a bit on a lot of the public items from the past few years on this topic for both of these properties. But since I wasn't on council last year when these resolutions came up, I was hoping Administrator Tahoney could briefly elaborate on the pros and cons of this proposed brokered real estate transaction with a commercial property broker as compared to a more public competitive bidding process through an RFP, for example.
The city conducted 2 separate processes, one for 415 and one for the Klein Lot. We did use an RFP process for both. The feeling was that having a broker would be better suited for the kinds of transactions that we were trying to get done. In this instance, unlike, I'll say, a traditional real estate transaction, based on the council's position, we're not simply looking for the highest bidder. If we were, then we might have done it a little differently. Council has expressed some specificity in what they want to see, particularly at the Klein Lot. So that's why we went through the process. Once we went through two separate processes, CBRE emerged as the winner in both. And so to be more efficient and to try to save the city money, we asked if they would be willing to combine it into a single contract, which they agreed to do.
Thank you. And one more quick question. How many possible projects evaluated by CBRE do you envision bringing to council once that evaluation process is complete for the properties?
Again, unlike the norm where you would bring the recommended project for council consideration, the administration is on record as saying we will bring the top 2 to 3 bids for the property to council because we expect them to be different. And there will be some variety in the options available to us, and then council would be able to give the administration its position and allow us to then enter into final negotiation for the sale.
Thank you.
Councilmember Medina.
Thank you. I also just had a question about the cost. I know kind of on its face, 700,000 seems like a lot, but I guess considering the value of the property, this is a flat rate, it seems, as opposed to a percentage of the value of the sale. Do you feel comfortable with the rate that we are receiving for the services?
Yes. In this instance, CBRE actually proposed a percent of sale pricing option. They did not submit the flat rate. Once we started doing some simple math on the percentage, depending on how much the property sold for, they would end up getting a lot more than $500,000 for the Klein lot, as an example. We went back to them and asked if we could negotiate, and they were willing to do so, so we landed at the prices that you see. The third thing that does need to be mentioned, for this to work, we have to actually manage the contract, and we intend to do just that. Meaning there's not going to be long gaps of time where we're not sure what they're doing, we're wondering what they're doing. We will have a regular cadence that will involve myself, the CFO, the Economic Development Director. We will know who is interested in both parcels. We're going to know what the preliminary offers are. We're going to be a part of the vetting process. We're also going to include a representative from the EDC. So we're going to push it to make sure it happens within the time frame. And we think under the circumstances, it is a reasonable price for the work that they will do.
Thank you.
Councilmember Iyer.
Thank you. A lot of my questions have already been covered, but I did have one additional one, and I think the answer is inherent in your last set of comments, but just to put a finer point on it, the fact that we are going with a flat fee rather than a commission, a couple of folks in the community have raised concerns about, well, they get paid no matter what, so what if nothing ends up coming to us or nothing of true value ends up coming to us? And obviously this is a big firm with a reputation, but if you could just kind of speak to that a little bit.
Certainly. It is incumbent upon us to manage the projects going forward, but CBRE has actually an international reputation for what they do. In regards to the scale of projects they typically handled, what we're doing is considered small. But what we were struck by is the vast amount of contacts and networks they have to put the properties in play and to involve us in how that happens. So we're comfortable with them as the vendor. We feel like we will get options to bring to you to decide in both instances. And we believe that this can be accomplished clearly within 18 months. The 415 will probably be the more challenging lot. People will be lined up to buy Klein. We already know that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Ackman.
I was wondering if you could help me further understand I understand that we have to pay half upfront of both, so we're paying, I think, $300,000 at the start, and then $600,000 total, is that right? Okay.
7.
So 350. Is that typical of this kind of a structure? And again, I guess maybe it just goes back to my fear, what if it doesn't work out?
It is typical for the kind of structure that we're doing, and again, we went to them with the flat rate. They came to us with percentages, and the percentages fluctuated if the other entity also had a broker. And we weren't comfortable with that approach. Is there some possibility that it couldn't or wouldn't work out? There's always that possibility, but the odds favor the city here. The asset that we're selling, the location of the assets that we're selling, if you look around the country, investments are occurring within downtown. We've been on the record that we want and need housing. We want and need placemaking. So if that's what we want, we do have to put ourselves out there and go get it. And that's what we intend to do.
Councilmember Cornell.
Sorry, Mr. Dohoney, you're still in the hot seat. I've heard a lot of feedback that city has staffing. Why can't the city just manage this internally? And I think you've touched on some of the factors, but I wonder if you can maybe provide, when you say there's going to be a lot of interest, I'm not asking you to quantify that, but in terms of the staffing involved to do that from an internal perspective versus paying somebody else to do it, a broker who does that professionally. Can you maybe clarify that for people who don't understand the broker process?
The broker process is acquiring a third party who will act as the city's agent. They will ask us, what types of potential buyers are you looking for? What is it that you would want them to do? What are the parameters? What does engagement look like? So while I understand the premise of an internal process, do we have people that work for the city that have the knowledge to actually conduct a real estate transaction? Of course. But then something else suffers that people are already complaining about. If you're already complaining about the development process takes too long and this takes too long, it's the same people that would be doing the same work. So we need this to be efficient, to be clean. We need the revenue to be generated, especially in the climate that we're in. And we're going to someone with a proven track record. CBRE knows how to move real estate. It's what they do. If we had a lot more staff, maybe we could do it internally. We just don't have the capacity to do that and the other things that those people are being asked to do. And I do want to make one comment about Joe Giant coming in. We're very excited about someone with his skill set and experience choosing to come here. But the Klein lot and 415 are properties with some sensitivity around it. I'll just put it that way. Joe Giant has no clue about that. If it's just a matter of go get as much money as you can, yeah, we could just give it to him and he could run out there and do that. But he doesn't have the context that has been established around the properties. We have that. So he will join us and be part of the team, and together we'll bring home what we believe to be a winning product.
I just want to say thank you for being so thoughtful and approaching this. These are valuable properties for the city, and I'm glad to see we're going to swing for the fences and get it right.
Further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? It is approved. CA8, resolution to increase purchasing authority on the, with 11 votes, with 11 council members present, all voting in the affirmative, thus satisfying the 8-vote requirement. Thank you. Resolution to increase purchasing authority of the construction contract with CA Hull Company for the East Medical Center Bridge Rehabilitation and Widening Project. $1.6 million increase. Total contract amount $13,807,881.33. Moved by Councilmember Briggs, second by Councilmember Cornell. Discussion of CA8, please. Councilmember Briggs.
I have a couple of questions, which I thought that I submitted this weekend, but they got caught in draft. So my apologies to staff. I sent them in at 7, so I've got people have had lots of time to contemplate them. Oh, good. There you are, Nick. Thank you, or Mr. Hutchinson. So I was, hopefully you've seen these. Are any of the delays are they because of the widening, essentially?
Some are, yes.
Okay. And so in terms of those extra costs, are those being shared equally with the University of Michigan?
In the memo, we said 50%. In reality, we're going to look at every one of those items, and we will share the cost with the university based on what our agreement is with them for cost sharing on this. But yes, they will be paying for a portion of it, certainly.
Okay, since they're paying for the 100% for widening, I guess I'm hoping that we will see that equitably as per that agreement. And then the memo notes that when the beams were removed during construction, they were found to be deteriorated more than thought. So I was going through the sort of scope of services. I saw that from 2021, I saw that, we anticipated, it was DLZ anticipated that, there was a possibility that those beams might be deteriorated when we got down. And so I was just curious in terms of that, was that extra time not factored into the work plan, or why was that a part of the delay process?
Yeah, we did plan to replace some beams, and we included those in the bid, in the contract bid. There were some beams that we thought we were going to be able to salvage. It turned out that there was one additional beam that we had to order a new beam for. Once we removed it, we found it was more deteriorated than it needed to be. And so that one extra beam that we needed to order, the lead time for that was substantial. So, but we didn't know that it was going to be needed to be fabricated until we removed it.
Got it. Great. Thanks so much.
Further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? It is approved. We now come to a set of public hearings. Public hearings are opportunities for members of the public to speak to council and the community about the specific subject matter of the public hearing. To speak at a public hearing, one need not have signed up in advance, but your speech must relate to the specific subject matter of the public hearing. That is to say, the specific item on the agenda to which the public hearing relates. Speakers in all instances will have 3 minutes in which to speak, so please pay close attention to the time. Our clerk or the time clock will notify you when 30 seconds are remaining and when your time has expired. When your time has expired, please conclude your remarks and cede the floor. Public hearing number 1, an ordinance to amend Section 1195, Public Market Advisory Commission, to Chapter 8, Organization of Boards and Commissions of Title I, Administration of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor. Is there anyone in-house who would like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone online who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Mayor, I don't see any callers online for this hearing.
Seeing no one, this public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 2, resolution to approve the Robertson Homes annexation, 6.3 acres, 255-315-371 Scioto Church Road, 2180 Ann Arbor Saline Road. Is there anyone in-house who would like to speak at this public hearing? Is there anyone online who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Adam Juskevich, do you have a comment?
Hi, this is Adam Juskevich again, calling from the 4th Ward. I live in the nearby Dickin neighborhood and attended the initial neighborhood meeting for this development a year or so ago. I support this development. The scale of this new neighborhood is entirely appropriate for the area. It adds much-needed homes in an area that is close to daily needs, jobs, schools, and several bus routes. The vitality added to the main Scioto Church Ann Arbor Saline area between this and the forthcoming Arbor on Main development can only make this side of town a better place to live. I look forward to new neighbors on my side of town. Please approve this annexation. Thank you.
Mayor, I don't have any other callers online for this hearing.
Seeing no one, this public hearing is closed. Public hearing number 3, resolution to vacate Cornwell Place. Release utility easements, release duct bank agreements, and approve a utilities transfer agreement with the University of Michigan. Is there anyone in-house who would like to speak at this public hearing? So, is there anyone online who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Mayor, I don't have any callers online for this hearing.
Seeing no one, this public hearing is closed. We have before us the regular session minutes of February 3rd, 2025. May I motion please to approve these minutes? Moved by Councilmember Watson, seconded by Councilmember Radina. Discussion of the minutes. All in favor? All opposed? Minutes are approved. B1, an ordinance to amend Section 1195, Public Market Advisory Commission to Chapter 8, Organization of Boards and Commissions of Title 1, Administration of the Ann Arbor City Code. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Watson. Discussion, please, of B1. All in favor? All opposed? It is approved. DS1, resolution to approve the Robertson Homes annexation, 6.3 acres, 255315371 Scioto Church Road and 2180 Ann Arbor Saline Road. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Ghazi Edwin. Discussion, please, of DS1. Councilmember Dish.
This annexation of 6.3 acres at Scioto Church and Ann Arbor Saline Road, these acres currently are located in Pittsfield Township, and bringing them into the city will support an infill project to provide up to 75 townhomes, attached single-family homes to the city. This is a type of housing we just don't have enough of. It makes homeownership an option for people searching for something around the median home price in Ann Arbor, which is, hold your breath, over $500,000. I know that sounds high, but there are actually very few offerings at that level. So much of our housing supply is way more than that. So these homes are needed. Tonight, we are not approving that project. I'm just giving you a taste, as our caller just did, of what this will be for. The Planning Commission recommends approval because the property is within the city's water and sewer service area, and the proposed use is consistent with the adjacent zoning, land uses, and comprehensive plan. So please join me in voting yes.
Councilmember Ackman.
Yeah, this parcel is just down, it's in Ward 4. Well, I guess it soon will be in Ward 4 if we approve this. Just down the street from both Councilmember Iyer and me. And I think it's primarily been used as occasional football parking. How many home games do we have a year? 10, 8? Anyway. Sorry. So maybe not the best land use, and I don't think maybe many residents know about these odd township islands that we have that you think that you're in Ann Arbor, but officially it's really not part of the city. And so I'm always excited to bring these in, especially one like this that's completely surrounded by other Ann Arbor properties. So looking forward to welcoming it to Ward 4.
Further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? It is approved. C1, an ordinance to amend Chapter 55, zoning, rezoning of 1.15 acres from TWP Township to PUD, Planned Unit Development, Hickory Way 3, PUD zoning and supplemental regulations 1146 South Maple Road. Moved by. Did I skip one? I skipped DS2, my apologies. Resolution to, DS2, thank you everyone. DS2, resolution to vacate Cornwell Place, release utility easements, release duct bank agreements, and approve a utilities transfer agreement with the University of Michigan. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Ghazi Edwin. Discussion, please, of DS2. Councilmember Dish.
So this resolution affects a street vacation for the entirety of Cornwell Place, which is a dead-end street near the hospital that runs between North Ingalls and doesn't quite reach Glen Ave. That's the dead-end part. It was first platted in 1848, and in its heyday, it was lined with mansions, but no longer. The university requests the city to vacate the street, which will be evenly split between the adjacent parcels on either side. And this street vacation will allow for a child care center to serve Michigan medicine staff, among other improvements. There are, as the mayor mentioned, private utilities in the right-of-way and also public sanitary water and stormwater utility mains that currently serve UM-owned parcels only, and these will be surrendered to the University of Michigan or turned over to them. Surrendered isn't the right word, if we vote for this vacation. So please do.
Further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? It is approved. C1, an ordinance to amend Chapter 55 zoning, rezoning of 1.15 acres from TWP Township to PUD, Planned Unit Development District, Hickory Way 3, PUD zoning and supplemental regulations 1146 South Maple Road. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Radina. Discussion, please, of C1. Councilmember Dish.
I'm really happy to bring this one to the table. The proposed 1146 South Maple will add a 4-story building providing 39 affordable one-bedroom residential units. These units will house those earning up to 60% of the area median income. Also, 30% of them will be reserved for supportive housing, which is very important to keep people in their homes. The development will be managed by Avalon Housing alongside affordable housing complexes Hickory Way 1 and 2. So this will be Hickory Way 3. Council annexed the parcel from Scioto Township back in last November, but rezoning is not automatic upon annexation. So tonight, we're just moving this to second reading. Upon second reading, we will see a site plan. I want to remind you that a petition to rezone to PUD needs to satisfy 8 criteria. And because these are really exciting, I'm going to very quickly review them, or review as many as I can get through. So this project more than meets the first criteria for a PUD, which is that it must have a beneficial effect for the city. As we know, homelessness is on the increase, and housing is increasingly unaffordable, so this is a 100% affordable housing project, and it's going to be 100% electric, meeting National Green Building standards. This beneficial effect could not be achieved under any other zoning classification, and in fact, we're getting more open space by zoning it PUD than we would if we zoned it R4E, which would be the closest comparable. The project site is consistent with the zonings adjacent to it, and also it conforms with the recommendations of the comprehensive land use plan that exists. The supplemental regulations provide sufficient justification and performance standards to monitor the benefits, that is, the affordability benefits and the electrification benefits. There are 20 parking spaces associated with this place, which is greatly reduced from what it initially came in at, and which just satisfies the minimum for MISHTA housing credits, and so you kind of have to have some parking. There will be minimal disturbance to natural features, and that will be mitigated.
Further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? It is approved. DC1, resolution to approve a professional services agreement with NewGen Strategies and Solutions, LLC, to complete an electric grid asset valuation and municipalization study. Moved by Councilmember Iyer, seconded by Councilmember Briggs. Discussion, please, of DC1. As many folks know, the vendor, NewGen, has requested a postponement. They've done so in order to enable one of their subcontractors to avoid a recently discovered potential conflict of interest. NewGen has expressed confidence that this matter can be resolved shortly and amicably. In that light, I'd be grateful for a motion to postpone this matter until our next meeting. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Udina. Discussion of the postponement. Councilmember Briggs.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak since a number of folks spoke around public comment. I do think it is fortuitous that this is being postponed. I was prepared to vote in favor of this the last time it came to us, but we needed to postpone because there wasn't yet community support for this proposal. I think it is incumbent upon us we must recognize that the environment has shifted. We are not dealing with business as usual. The federal government this administration is not following past playbooks, and we don't know what the implications of that are going to be on our community. What we do know is that this administration is going after the most vulnerable in our community. It is going after our priorities, climate, so many more things, right? But the implications and what that might mean for our budget are yet unknown, and the strains that might have on our budget are yet unknown. And so I think that having a little bit of time to be able to contemplate just a little bit longer and see what that horizon might look like is helpful for us. Because I think what we're hearing from advocates is it's somewhat of a foregone solution decision in terms of when we get this report, there's a desire to go to the voters regardless of what it says. And so, I think that we want to make sure that if we have a phase 2 study, we're ready to act upon that we have the ability to act upon it, and that we want to be in a time where we have the ability to.
Further discussion of the postponement? All in favor? All opposed? The postponement is approved. DC2, resolution to authorize city staff to perform the preliminary work necessary to put the question of the acquisition of DTE Electric Company's assets to a vote of the people and prepare for litigation should the voters authorize such acquisition. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Udina. Discussion, please, of DC2 in light of the fact that this resolution is so closely connected with the study described in DC1, and in light of the fact that DC1 has been postponed, I'd request a councilmember move to postpone DC2 to our next meeting. Moved by Councilmember Dish, second by Councilmember Watson. Discussion, please, of the postponement. Councilmember Dish.
I might not be able to ask this. I wanted to clarify something about the procedure that is outlined here, but if we're discussing only the postponement, that would be incorrect to raise it this time?
It would be off key.
Okay, then I will write a note to my friends in legal.
Further discussion of the postponement? All in favor? All opposed? It is postponed. DC3, resolution directing enhanced enforcement of bicycle lane ordinances and identification of engineering solutions to prevent obstruction of designated bicycle lanes. Moved by Councilmember Ackman, second by Councilmember Cornell. Discussion, please, of DC3. Councilmember Ackman.
Thank you. So I think at this point, everybody at this table knows that it's illegal to park vehicles or leave trash bins or other stationary objects in bike lanes. But as was said in public comment, and we've heard here during many other previous public comment times, that enforcement is largely reactive. It's based on people calling in complaints, and there are two issues with that. One, the nature of the violation is often transitory enough that that person cannot be cited or even warned. Second, we see just patterns of blatant disregard in certain areas that to me signals people are aware that they cannot park there and they're doing so anyway because it's become just de facto accepted. And, if you spend any time biking around the city, these areas. It's constantly on Main Street as you're coming into downtown from Stadium. It's on Division between Hill and Hoover. And like I said, just rows of cars just parked there. I've also heard from residents that have gotten into altercations because instead of dealing with the frustrating situation of calling the non-emergency number and getting voicemail or being outside of hours, they've taken it upon themselves to interact with the person, and that has sometimes led to conflicts that you really wouldn't want to have with other people and putting kind of people into danger. So what this is asking is for the city to come up with a plan for more proactive enforcement. We know that we will never have the amount of resources to, blanket the city with every violation. What this is really asking for is a focused effort on some of the areas that are most egregious, and so that people, get it in their heads that if they do this, they're going to be ticketed and it's not legal. So this asks for an enforcement strategy. It asks for some tracking metrics so that we can monitor the effectiveness of this, public education and outreach plan, as well as quarterly reports so that we can get a sense of how effective this is being. And perhaps most importantly, even though it maybe takes up a relatively small portion of the resolution text, I would hope that ultimately we can identify engineering solutions that just stop people from doing behavior that they shouldn't be doing. So that's that.
Councilmember Briggs.
Thank you. And thanks to Councilmember Ackman for leading the charge on this one. I was speaking with the interim executive director of the League of Michigan Bicyclists today and brought this up as something that we were working on. And he just asked me to share a story with all of you about, we all know that the importance of this, but sometimes it can feel like what's the big deal? Trying to go around an obstruction in the bike lane. And he just reminded me of a story from 2022 in Chicago, where a mom was riding with her 3-year-old in a carrier behind the bike, and the mom just tried to squeeze around a utility truck that was parked in the bike lane there, and a semi was pulling away at the same time, was in that lane, and the 3-year-old child in the child carrier was killed. So, there's real human consequences to designing facilities and then not having them work and having to have people make sort of split decisions and quick decisions. So I'm thankful that we're trying to make sure that these facilities work for us all the time and for everybody who's using them.
Councilmember Iyer.
Thank you. Just thanks to my colleagues for bringing this forward. Certainly have heard from residents of Ward 4, some of our more active folks in the community, in the biking community, how frustrating it's been to have facilities built and then have them be inaccessible. We can't be a bike-friendly city if we're building bike lanes and then allowing them to be blocked all the time by cars and trash bins and whatnot. This is, our bike lanes are really important on a number of reasons. They're important to our Vision Zero, to our transportation plan. They're important to our climate action plan. And I appreciate that this is being brought forward, that it's data-driven, and I'm really hopeful that it'll make a difference. So, thank you.
Further discussion? Councilmember Watson.
I just wanted to draw attention to the last bullet point in the resolve clause about the public education and outreach plan to promote awareness. And, I just wanted to harken back to a time where Ann Arbor did a lot of that engagement around RRFB compliance and stopping at crosswalks. And I really think our city saw those efforts bear a lot of fruit. And so I just wanted to say the outreach and engagement, especially when it's combined with enforcement, it can change behavior. I think at one point when we measured it, our RRFB stopping compliance was actually very, very high compared to other cities. So I think this is good, and I appreciate my colleagues bringing this forward, but I wanted to let people know we have some experience in the past where the education did change behavior.
Further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? It is approved. DC4, resolution to recommend approval of issuance of Downtown Development District liquor license to Recess Cafe LLC, moved by Councilmember Watson, seconded by Councilmember Dish. Discussion, please, of DC4. Councilmember Dish.
This is a proposal for a downtown development license, which state law allows us to grant to public establishments for dining, entertainment, or recreation, as long as they have a seating capacity of more than of 35 persons or more, and they rehab or restore a building. Now, Recess, which will be at 208 South Ashley Street, if we approve this, meets those requirements and brings something really unusual to the city, which is a kid-friendly place for adults and kids to hang out and meet friends over snacks, beer, wine, spirits, or non-alcoholic drinks. It is also going to be a community gathering space that you can reserve in advance. Now, adults are not obliged to bring a kid, but kids are obliged to bring an adult. So please, let's do the education around that. This will be really a unique addition to Ann Arbor's increasingly diverse and rich cafe scene. It's also responsive to a larger problem of isolation for parents of young children that surveys in the U.S. started paying attention to in 2024. And so I love this idea, and we were so excited often at the Liquor Commission, we have raucous meetings because people have great ideas, and this is one of them.
Councilmember Cornell.
I, too, am very excited, and you touched briefly on something that I was going to bring up, is that when we talk about the importance of economic development and placemaking, we talk about the importance of third spaces, and this is one that is family-friendly, fills a niche within our community and a real need for parents with young kids to be able to get out of the house and to congregate with other adults and not feel like you're in the middle of a jungle gym. I would have loved to have this place when my kids were younger because it's another connection to other adults, and being a parent to young kids can be really isolating. So, and it's going to be right around the corner from the Art Center and is joining the great businesses in Ward 5. So I'm really enthusiastic about this, and I appreciate my colleagues' support for it.
Councilmember Rodino.
Thanks. Very briefly, simply because Councilmember Dish said most of what I wanted to say. I also just wanted to point out that this proposal is being brought to us by a downtown resident who really recognized, this need, this thing that she wished existed in our downtown, and sees this opportunity to, I think, capitalize on a really good idea that will add to the value of our downtown. And just briefly reading from the personal statement in her application, she said, "Ann Arbor is incredibly family-friendly as a community, but our downtown is in need of more businesses that cater to the families that make up our community. Recess offers a third space for working families, a place in the heart of downtown where parents are able to get additional work done on a snow day, somewhere they can meet up with friends without having to find childcare." And so I just think it's a really cool opportunity, and one of the other things I will note is they are not open late, and we asked about that, and she said that's just not our vibe. We're a place where people can bring their kids and where they can hang out and where they can work, but we're not going to be the place where you're still hanging out and drinking at 9 o'clock at night. This is a daytime place for folks to hang out until 7 o'clock, and so I think it's a really cool idea, and I wish them all the success.
Councilmember Gaziano.
I just want to go really bad, like right now. That's all really I want to say. No, I remember reading an article about how places like this exist in like Denmark and Sweden, and thinking like, I can't wait. I hope we get something like this. So this is really awesome. I can't wait to go.
Further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? It too is approved. Do we have the pleasure of a closed session today?
It is difficult to follow a family-friendly liquor establishment, but yes, I would like to. I would like to request a closed session.
There won't be.
Under MCL 15.268, Section 8, 1H, to discuss a privileged and confidential memo provided to council on February 15th, 2025.
May I have a motion, please, to go into closed session on that basis? Moved by Councilmember Cornell, second by Councilmember Briggs. Discussion. Roll call vote, please, starting with Councilmember Watson.
Councilmember Watson?
Yes.
Councilmember Malik?
Yes.
Councilmember Radina?
Yes.
Councilmember Ghazi Edwin?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Councilmember Iyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Ackman?
Yes.
Councilmember Briggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Cornell? Yes. Councilmember Dish?
Yes.
Councilmember Harrison?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Closed session. We are back after closed session. May I have a motion, please, to go back into open session? Moved by Councilmember Medina, second by Councilmember Malik. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? We are back in open session. We have before us the clerk's report of communications, petitions, and referrals. May I have a motion, please, to approve the clerk's report? Moved by Councilmember Dish, second by Councilmember Medina. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The clerk's report is approved. Do we have any communications today from our city attorney?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Alas. In the absence of public comment overflow, may I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Councilmember Cornell, second by Councilmember Briggs. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned.